Hi there, my name is Denny, and welcome to the Speak Dicely podcast, the show where I get together with other tabletop enthusiasts and we speak Dicely together. Today's episode of the podcast is a bit more informal than this usually is. I've been joined by my friend and fellow D&D YouTuber Folkard from the channel Lutes Dice, and we're talking about our different cultures, the fact that we're in different places in the world, as well as things such as social skill development through D&D, as well as Dungeons and Dragons and anxiety. We touch on things about mental health in this episode, and I should also preface this, we are not professionals, and we're not here to give you specific advice. If you're in need of mental health help, seek professionals. But we do have a pretty good conversation here today, so let's hop on over to that.
I don't know why, what's wrong. Maybe it's the weather, the seasons are changing, whatever, but I feel totally exhausted these days. I don't know why. No, it's fine.
The seasonal change is so rough. I don't know what the weather's like where you are, because you guys are so far away in comparison, but it's starting to get cold in Canada. We just had our daylight savings change, so everything's off an hour.
Oh yeah, we had that too. It's I didn't even notice because back in the day you were supposed to manually change the clock and you're aware of that, but now I didn't even notice. I'm just the alarm clock just worked the other day, and I'm okay, and then in the middle of the day I'm feeling that something's off.
Yeah.
And then I'm reading about this. Oh, so it's the time has changed. Yeah, I'm at that point I realized I have no mechanical clock.
Yeah, nothing analog.
Yeah, everything's just automatic now. It's crazy.
That is the beautiful thing about it. I mean, I had to change my stove clock, but that's about it.
Yeah, I don't have that on my stove.
Lucky you.
Yeah. I was at my friend's house, and they made a new kitchen. They just moved in, and they have two separate things in their kitchen. I don't know. Perhaps it's a microwave and an oven or something, and it's kind of integrated into the thing, and it has two different displays next to each other, and one is slightly off from another, half a minute for and it's really kind of difficult to change them because those ovens and stoves, they have really weird ways to change it. It's not easy.
Yeah.
It requires some engineering ranks. And I'm we were sitting in the kitchen just playing board game or something, and I'm watching at those clocks, and it drives me crazy because only just 1 minute changes on one thing, and then 30 seconds later on the other, and I'm dude, why won't you change it? It's driving me crazy. Let's change season. I want to see that.
Yeah. What time is it really?
Yeah. How can we know?
It's impossible. Not until you get that engineer in. Oh.
Yeah.
My dogs are going crazy upstairs. I'm sorry about that.
You know that Canada has the biggest, the largest Ukrainian community in the world, after Ukraine, obviously.
Oh, okay, I was about to be hold on a minute.
No, not counting the actual place, the actual Ukraine.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because for a while there, I know Canada was taking a lot of refugees, and would that be part of the reason for that?
Refugees?
I might be thinking of the wrong place. I might just be spouting some nonsense. We were accepting a lot of refugees from somewhere. It might not have been Ukraine.
I don't think we had any refugees.
Well, there we go. I am worldly known, but that's interesting. So why do you think that is?
I think I have no idea. I mean, I know that it probably happened somewhere around the first half of the last century.
Okay.
But the actual, like, I mean, everybody moved to America.
Right.
And Ukrainians just went to Canada. They were just, a little bit northern. I don't know.
They made the better choice, frankly.
Yeah, I guess.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's interesting.
Have you ever traveled to like the North America or the Americas at all?
No, but I've never been to that part of the world at all. I've only explored this, what do you call it? Semi-sphere,
Yep.
right? That's the right term?
I don't know if that is the correct term, but I get what you're saying.
Okay. Yeah, because, English is not my mother tongue, so some areas are kind of weird to me. Yeah, so yeah, I've been to a lot of places here in Europe, and I think the farthest I've ever traveled is to Sri Lanka.
Okay.
It's
Wow.
like below India.
Yeah.
It took 9 hours of flight. No, actually, I think more maybe, because yeah, there was a like, what do you call it? A the flight, whatever, a 9 hour flight from like straight without any transitions.
Right.
But we thought, oh, it's 9 hours in the plane. Let's make a stop in Dubai and just have a walk or something. And it was the worst decision ever, because it was more exhausting to make a stop and then wait there. And we couldn't, there was an option to make like visas online. So we could leave the airport in Dubai, but they came in late, and we were in the airports waiting for like an hour, and then they appeared, and everybody was really rude in Dubai, because like, me and my wife, she was like talking to them, and they were responding to me
Oh, right,
and
right.
saying like, does she have a passport, like something like that.
Right. That very much that the gender cultural difference.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it was not a very pleasant experience. And we booked the tickets back as well, and we didn't have a choice, so we were like, oh, I guess we have to stay there again. And it was a new year. We decided to go like into like a warm place, a new year, and we spent like a week there. And then on the day before we were meant to leave home, uh, we went surfing. Like, we decided to learn how to surf, and my wife
Amazing.
broke a leg
Okay, you failed to learn how
while
to surf.
while surfing. Like, it's funny because a few days before, we met our friend, our colleague from work there. Like, it was insane. We just by accident
Wow.
went to Sri Lanka at the same time, but whatever. And he said, yeah, it's impossible to get like traumas while surfing. And I think my wife thought to herself, challenge accepted. And she actually broke a leg, and we spent the new year with her. Like, it was the most stressful vacation. So now I hate Sri Lanka, because we had a really
Wow.
they didn't even they so we spent like around $1,000
Right.
to like get her in the hospital, make an x-ray. And by Ukrainian standards, that's insane. That's like, because the medicine here is pretty cheap,
Mhm.
and that's like my entire like monthly salary back then. And they didn't even discover the break in the bone.
Oh, grief.
We learned about that here in Kiev, which is and they were like, yeah, you're fine. And but you owe us $1,000, whatever. And we went back home, and we went to the doctor, and we showed him the exact same photograph, like the exact same x-ray, and he's like, yeah, there's a broken bone. Just like
Wow.
that, in a second. So yeah, there you have it.
Wow. I it's it's such it's such an iffy industry to be in, like medicine, because it's like, depending on how good the person taking care of you is, that can, like, mistakes can be so huge.
Yeah.
And then of course, depending on where you are, it can be so costly.
Yeah. And I mean, my wife said that she's actually glad that they didn't find anything, because she had a friend who was there, and he had an injury that had to be treated surgically.
Right.
So they cut him, they fixed something, they stitched him back, and they've stitched some sand by accident into him, because I guess he was injured at a beach or something. They just delivered him to the hospital. Like, and I mean, how crazy is that?
Wow.
So he,
Holy.
of course, he had to be treated again, I guess, to clean his insides from sand.
Yeah,
Jesus
there,
Christ.
I imagine there must be some, like, sort of infection that came about.
I mean, that's crazy. So yeah. And by the way, that was the first time ever we went without insurance.
Oh no.
We went traveling, because we traveled a lot through like Europe. We've been to a lot of countries, and we always make the insurance. And this one time we were like late or something, and we couldn't manage to do this. And we're like, yeah, well, whatever. We always do this, and nothing happens anyway.
Oh
So
boy.
there you have it. Like, lesson learned.
Wow. That beats out my travel story. I was going to the Czech Republic, to meet up with some,
Mm.
my industry was in theatrical design, and I was going over to meet some people in Prague for, it was called the Prague Quadriennial. It's this, a bunch of exhibits around the city,
Mm-hmm.
and like theater and design, and all the countries come together and they're presenting stuff essentially. And I had a lot of friends that were working that. So I was flying over to go visit with them, and a bunch of us were going to go from there to Vienna, stopping at Baroque era theaters and just
Mm-hmm.
kind of looking at their stage work and all this. But the flight over, I had a layover in Belgium, and this was the first time I'd flown by myself. So I was a little nervous about it, and I was like, "Oh, hopefully things go smoothly." They did not. They did not go smoothly. I ended up missing my transfer because our plane was running late from Toronto to Belgium. So I ended up having
Oh,
to rebook another flight, and it wasn't for another 8 hours. So I had to wait for
that's
8 hours. My luggage had made it onto the first flight, apparently. So once I got into Prague, my luggage was nowhere to be found. And I was like,
oh
cool,
damn.
great. And the language in Prague is so, like, for a lot of like English speakers, like things like French or Italian, like the romantic languages, like you can kind of pick up words here and there, but Prague's language is so different from anything I've been used
Yeah,
to.
it's Slavic.
Yeah, and I was like, I cannot pick up anything. I don't know where I'm going. And I had planned on Google Maps before the flight. I was like, okay, so I get off here, I go to this stop on the subway, and then I'll have to just walk from there. Okay, this should be no problem. The subway stop I got off at apparently had like 5 exits, and I took the wrong one. And so I wandered around the city being like, I don't know where I am. I Facebooked my mom. I was like, you need to add my friends on Facebook and message them, please. Find me. I'm lost in Prague. And after like an hour of just wandering around, not knowing where I was, I sat down in a park, and then I saw across the street from where I sat down one of my friends exit a building, and I was like, you, I need you. Uh,
Please.
and then eventually the next day, my luggage did get brought. So it all worked out.
But didn't anybody like speak English or something to help you out?
I
I mean, Czech people.
I had I stopped a few people to ask. I'm like, I'm looking for this hostel, and it seemed like a lot of people had no idea where I was going.
Okay.
But it ended up working out. But yeah, that was a story.
Yeah, I've been to Prague 2 times actually.
Oh yeah.
Uh, First time just for like we were traveling. Oh, we were going to. I think we were going to Budapest. No, not Budapest. Bratislava, right? In Slovakia, I think. Yeah, it's near Czech Republic.
Okay.
And we were going to the Blind Guardian concert. It's a power metal band from Germany.
Nice.
And I was just going strictly there, but my wife wanted to visit Prague as well. So we went that time. And actually, Slovakia and Czech Republic, we have less trouble understanding stuff because the languages are Slavic. And it's kind of the same as English and French, Ukrainian and Czech.
Interesting.
Kind of the same thing. It's very similar. I mean, not very similar, but for example, like Ukrainian and Polish have more than around, I don't know, 60 or 70% like vocabulary in common. It's just, It sounds different, but the word stems are the same. But of course, it's still really hard to kind of figure it out. But for example, we went to Poland one time and we were trying to communicate in English with elder people, like asking directions, and they were like, "What?" And they was like, we started speaking Ukrainian. Perhaps they get there, and they were like, "Oh, this is where you're gonna go." And I'm talking Ukrainian, and he's talking Polish, but we sort of understand each other.
Yeah.
And I did that, and I'm like, "Oh, this is magic." Okay, I'm going to order coffee in this coffee shop in Ukrainian. So I'm walking to this young lady, she's like 20 or something, and I'm talking to her in Ukrainian, and she's like, "English, please." And I'm like, okay, that didn't work. So younger people are kind of, lazier because, they know English. Why even bother?
Yeah. It's, and especially with like social media and the popular things, a lot of them I feel like kind of get pushed in English, so it's like it seems to be more common for the younger generations.
Yeah, but now I'm learning Polish for no reason, just because I want to read The Witcher in the original language. That's my little dream.
That's really cool. I like that.
Yeah, because I once thought, how hard can it be? Like Polish is very similar, so I turned on the Polish language in The Witcher 3, and I almost went insane. Like my head started hurting after like 10 minutes. I was trying to read everything, and it has a lot of those kind of sounds.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, my head actually like hurts just by trying to read that. And the combinations of letters are insane. Like R and Z make Z, and S and Z make sh, and CZ make ch. So it may be SZCZ, 4 letters. They make sh sound. And a lot of words are like that. And you go a little bit crazy if you don't know it and you're not used to that.
Yeah. I mean, language is so interesting. Like my name, for example, Denny. Like it's said like it's spelled Denny, which is a common, or at least was a common, like an Anglophone name. But my name is spelled Teni with a T.
Yeah.
And that's because it only happens to sound like an English name, but it's actually just a Mohawk nickname. I'm an Indigenous Canadian, so it's there's just the different language rules, right? And like in my Mohawk language, the combination of TSI makes a J sound.
Wait a second. You're a what?
Indigenous Canadian.
What's that?
So it's like the First Peoples, like First Nations, the people that were here like thousands of years beforehand.
So it's like Native American?
Yes, that's exactly it.
But Indigenous, I never heard that term.
Yeah, it's kind of the one that people are turning more towards.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Native American, absolutely. I guess that gets the idea better across.
Wow, I didn't know that. Now I can see it. You look like a chieftain.
Wow.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I
I'm a good
didn't mean
sport.
this.
That's probably not the first thing you should go on though after this interaction.
Okay, I hope that wasn't racist. Was it?
It might have been.
Oh shit! I panicked. Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
I'm not.
What was it I did earlier about like not thinking Ukraine's for the refugees we recently took in?
Okay,
I think we both have our point.
okay. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I've never actually met anybody with that. What do you call it?
ancestry?
Ethnicity.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That's all good.
it's really cool. I am honored. No, I really. I love like mm, like encountering different cultures. This is like my favorite thing.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. So are you like, do you know a lot of stuff about your like ancestry? Do you like study that?
I grew up with a lot of it. It's definitely been less of a less present in my modern life, I guess. Like I
Mhm.
grew up learning my language and like cultural practices and stuff like that. So I know a fair bit, but I'm definitely not as practiced as like I've got a younger brother. He is still studying language and he's almost fluent. And that's one of the thing with
Wow.
our languages too is they were almost lost and now they're kind of
Yeah.
being relearned and yeah.
So how, what is the structure of all this? Did the people like native indigenous Canadians had the like a lot of languages,
Yeah,
or
I mean
was it?
they're so yeah, the like the Americas are like huge masses of land, and there were like hundreds of different cultures basically dotting the place. Like in where I am at near the Great Lakes in Ontario, Canada, um, like there were the Iroquois Confederacy, which is 5 nations in that, or became 6. So like Mohawk, Seneca, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, and Tuscarora, and those are all specific cultures. Some of them shared languages, and then not far off there's like Anishinaabe. Heading out west, you have different plains tribes. The West Coast had different peoples out there. There were hundreds of other tribes and groups down in America. So like there were lots of variation and there was a lot of difference across the continent.
Wow, that's very interesting. I am now interested in your culture as well.
Uh,
Because
Perhaps
I
at some
get
point we can talk more about that.
yeah, I get very easily in love with cultures, you know. So yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah,
So yeah, I'm Ukrainian. That's
yeah.
not that
Well,
interesting.
I mean, I know so little about the Ukrainian culture too, so like perhaps we should do a cultural exchange at some point.
Yeah, that would be super cool. Uh, I'm trying to do something with the light here so that I don't look like I sit in the dark like a vampire.
uh,
It's not that I really care. I mean, you look gorgeous, so people are gonna look at you, and that's it.
well, I'm glad you think so.
No, really. I mean, not only you, but your background as well, the lighting, everything.
Well, that I went to university for that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's all my degree got me.
I mean, okay.
Yeah,
I'm a sound engineer, like actually, but not really.
right, right.
Right now, I'm doing YouTube, and that's it. Like YouTube and Patreon, and that's pretty much it. The other like time I spend studying languages and doing kendo now. Like I do kendo. Like, you know what kendo
Yeah,
means?
yeah. It's like it's a sword practice, right?
Yeah. So that I really got into that, and now I'm crazy about it. And I got my own Sinai, Yeah, I mean, basically, it's yelling and hitting people with a stick. So that's
Amazing.
yeah. I mean, who wouldn't like it? Yelling at people, like
Is the goal
without
like
any.
to try and scare your opponent and then hit them?
Yeah, sort of. Well, not only that, but that's the part of it. It's called ki. It's kind of your spirit, and it's meant to represent your determination and sort of, yeah, to kind of morally suppress your opponent and boost your morale at the same time. So you kind of get, bumped, like it's a little berserk mode. So and also, as a discipline, as a sport, that's a part of a technique. Like the judge, if you actually attend competition, judges will give you a point based on a lot of stuff, and ki is one of them. So your technique, where do you hit, how you do that, a lot of stuff. It's actually 3 judges watching the fight, and 2 of them has to give you a point in order for it to be legit. So if one dude thinks that's a point and 2 guys think that no, you don't get a point.
Okay, interesting.
I am a professional at just explaining things to people.
Yeah, no, I get it. That's that.
Yeah, sure. So the thing is, the reason I thought about this, because over the years of playing D&D, I started noticing how I actually, sort of defeating my prejudice towards people with years. I don't know if you can relate to that. So talking about like how D&D makes you kind of a little bit more insightful.
Mm-hmm.
So before jumping into social anxiety stuff, how about we talk about that a little bit, because that's kind of connected. It's actually for me, it was like a journey, a personality journey from one point to another. And not that it was the only thing. I mean, eventually, I think that over the 8 years that I've been running D&D, I think I became a better person. And for at least, I don't know, a considerable part of that journey was Dungeons and Dragons. Of course, not only that, I'm not saying that if you're going to play Dungeons and Dragons, you're going to be a better person just by doing that, by killing goblins or whatever. But yeah, like, have you experienced something like that? Have you noticed something about?
Yeah,
like
I
being
mean,
more
like,
insightful, open-minded, getting to understand people and not like judging them like from the start.
well, I mean, I should preface this with I'm a very judgy person, but
Okay.
not like more in a like I make quick analysis. That's not the right word. Quick. Well, I guess it's just quick judgments about people. But that's not exactly. Oh, frig. This wording is poorly. I'll revisit this once I start talking about this topic. So, yeah, I agree in that, like, over the years of playing D&D, like, the fact that you come to a table and everybody's got a character, you're essentially put into a situation where you are meeting new people, but they're played by people you know. So it's interesting to be like, yeah, so this is the role I am today, and I have to kind of meet you again, and I would be making judgments, and then they'd also be kind of learning about their character. So in a way, it's like you're being exposed to new people, but it's a safe way to do it. So after doing this for years, it absolutely makes sense that, especially as DMs who have to also don many different people, that we kind of begin to understand different psychologies, different types of archetypes of types of people. Yeah, I've totally seen myself change from I grew up in a small town, so a lot of us, like, we knew the people we grew up with, and those were the people that were like, everybody else is like, we don't much care for them. But playing D&D, I think that opened me up a bit more to be like, once I went to university, which was beyond my hometown, I was very comfortable meeting with people of different cultures, of different mindsets, and understanding how other people thought, because I'd been role playing with other people who tried to think in different ways. Yeah,
Sure.
That was a little sloppy, but hopefully that kind of
No,
came across.
yeah, sure. So, yeah, I mean, I never thought about it in like meeting new people while talking to your friends, something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it's an interesting point. I never thought about that like that. But I was kind of thinking about me doing, you know, kind of dipping myself into various minds of other people. Like you have to incorporate NPCs and good guys, bad guys, evil guys, crazy people, and you have to kind of, you have to play them, so you have to understand them a little bit. And like when you do this over the years, it's kind of like, reading fiction is, I think, is really good to like get some life experience without actually going through it, and you kind of you're engaged in a story of an entirely different person, and you kind of submerge yourself into their lives. And Dungeons and Dragons is that experience, but even amplified somehow. If you read stuff and you play D&D at the same time, I think it really kind of amplifies that experience. And the interesting thing is, kind of getting that prejudice stuff exposed, and being able to recognize it is how I came to that. Is when you know the true reasoning behind your NPCs, behind their actions and stuff, and you see how players are making prejudiced decisions based on the first kind of evidence they get their hands on, or in someone else's words, but you know that how why they think that, and you know that, okay, this NPC is actually like the reasoning is completely different, and you're trying to convince them, but they're kind of being prejudiced, and you're like, I mean, you can literally translate that to real life. And that's why, like, being like doing that over the years, and of course at the same time going to therapy, trying to understand myself and all that stuff, but in complex, that makes you kind of become less prejudiced. And now that I hear about something, because my friends, a lot of them, my old friends, they kind of stayed at the same level as we were talking about in university, or like in school, we were talking to them, and they kind of stayed in the same level of like perceiving world. And I actually, it might sound a little bit like arrogant or something, but I've ascended the mountain of wisdom. Yeah. But I mean, there's a little something in that, like truly. And when I talk to them and they, like, both of us see somebody, like a couple or something, people in a relationship, and they kind of make decisions like, I'm 100% sure that situation is that, And I'm like, how can you be 100% sure? You don't know anything about this. You just saw like them exchanging a few words, and now you're thinking that there's some abuse going on or whatever, like whatever judgment it can be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I guess kind of what I missed there was I was thinking more external as opposed to internal, but you're absolutely right. Like the more personalities and psychologies that we explore, the more empathetic we can learn to be, because it's literally that walk a mile in my shoes thing that they say,
Yeah.
And with those judgments players make, because a bugbear is bad, but if they don't talk to it and just start a fight right away, they'll never like explore that the bugbear has 2 kids and he loves making snowmen with them, and that's why he's out here in the middle of the winter. But yeah, and it's, I think, and especially being a dungeon master or a game master, it gives us such a huge opportunity to develop that insight into other people and that empathy for what might be happening behind the scenes, for sure. And going back to that thing I was very poorly explaining earlier about like snap judgments, it's not that I look at somebody and go, this is what I think of you, this is what you must be. It's more of a, you have to have a conversation with somebody, you know? And like, and I think this is mostly my DM philosophy as well. It's just ask questions. And that's how you get to know somebody in a conversation too. Just ask some questions, and that's how you get insight into people, you know? Like, what do you think about this? Or what is something that makes you happy? Like, or how are things with your family? Like, that is how you break into, well, I break into is a very poor way of putting this, but this is how you gain access into the mindset of somebody else. Like, you just understand what's going on in their lives.
Yeah, I can totally see. I like breaking in people's heads too.
That's what I do in D&D. I want to break into your brain.
Yeah, I can totally see that. As you were saying this, I had a thought, and now I forgot what I was going to say. That happens to me all the time. Yeah. Oh, yeah, right. Just instead of making a statement about somebody, just go ahead and ask first. Yeah, and that's going to kind of clarify a lot of things. It may just wipe away your first impression. That's a really good point. That's actually like life wisdom.
Yeah. There's so much that playing D&D can teach us about life.
Sure, if you expose yourselves to that, because you can totally just sit around, roll dice, and kill stuff. But because that's people usually make judgments like that about every kind of things, even like, so I was just talking about the Eastern martial arts, if you, and I was describing it like kendo as like yelling and hitting people, it can be just that, but if you actually break into the philosophy behind this, you can if you try. The same goes to like, if we think that D&D is a teacher and we are a student, that's kind of the same thing. I've been teaching people music for quite some time, and a teacher by themselves can't do anything with your head. They can put intelligence in you. Yeah, they kind of show you the way. And in practice, that's literally doing homework. Attending class is not enough. You have to do homework. So I think that the reason I'm talking about that is just that applies to a lot of things in life. If stuff just happens to you, it's not going to change you like necessarily. You have to like open up your mind and be attentive.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to be receptive to other, well, I mean, the world is filled with other people, and if you're so focused on yourself and you're not receptive to what other people are offering to you, that is such a closing of the door. Like, it's such a sheltered way of living. And I think part of the problem with the current world is that people are kind of like shutting each other out. They're like, I don't want to hear your opinion because my opinion is the one that's correct, or the truth that I know.
So basically what you're saying is the problem with nowadays world is that people don't play enough D&D.
That's right. Yeah. They're failing at making their groups work. They nobody can meet up on the Sunday. Greg can only meet up on the Wednesday.
Yeah.
The scheduling.
I mean, I don't think that's just about modern world. I think it describes people in general. I don't think anything people change over the centuries, to be honest. Like a little bit. Like, the amount of intelligent, maybe the amount of tolerant people and civilized people change, but like this misunderstanding and not wanting to hear others, I mean, I think it just existed like for the entire human history.
Yeah.
So, do you have anything else to like think about, like how D&D can open our minds?
Well, I mean, in terms of how D&D can open our minds, like
maybe even in talking to our friends, like communicating with people, not necessarily in the game world, but can like, it kind of make you better at communicating with a player?
That's exactly what I was about to get at there. Like the fact that in order to get the game that you want, everybody knows, or at least I guess a lot of GMs would know, the session 0 is super important. And you want to know why? It's because we all get together and talk about what kind of experience we want to have. And, we set those boundaries. It's like, well, what are you not comfortable with? Or what kind of genre do we want to play in? Or this is the adventure I have in mind. Like sparking conversations. And again, just going back to that philosophy of ask questions. Like once... example, so Folkard, I'm going to run you a horror themed one shot. That's great. Well, you came into the room with your newly introduced fairy cleric, or let's say fairy what's a good, I guess, glamour bard, and it's like, yes, this will play well in a horror campaign, won't it? And your character's not geared towards it whatsoever. And so mechanically and thematically, this is probably going to clash a little bit from my idea of a one-shot and your idea of the story you want to explore as a character. But also, there's probably going to be some unpleasant experiences considering that we both have these different expectations. And finding out what the expectations are and not assuming things, and assuming is where a lot of problems come in.
Yeah, totally. And not only in D&Ds, it happens all over the place. So I actually had a fight with my friend like months ago or 2 months.
That's great. Let's get into it.
Why?
Just kidding.
Okay. So, and I was just gonna say that by the way, we don't talk until now. Like it was really bad. I don't think we will. Yeah. And it was just, I think that's because like we didn't have our session 0 at some point. You know what I mean? At the start of like a new chapter in our lives, a new campaign, we just didn't sync our expectations about our friendship. Like, what do we need from each other? And I'm not gonna get into the details, but basically, we sort of, one got let down by another one, and the other one didn't know why did it happen, because we could have just talked previously, like, and it got really bad, and there you go. And I mean, a little less depressing example would be like if you want to spend a romantic night with your partner or whatever, and they expect something from you and you expect something completely different, and you do this, and they're like, okay, when's this gonna start? And nothing happens or whatever. You're just doing something, and then you say goodbye, and everybody's like, or one person gets upset, the other person feels it, and eventually the night is ruined. But you could have just easily just sync your expectations. And that, when I started running D&D, that happened a lot, because I didn't have a lot of friends to play with, and I was not an experienced DM,
of course,
and obviously, and I didn't kind of quite understand by myself, like, I didn't have everything put into its own place in my head, like, what am I doing exactly? So I used to gather people, like random people around, like my friends from different circles, and we had a lot of problems with that. We had fights, players fighting each other because they were thinking about completely different experiences. One was gonna munchkin and get all the best equipment and ruin the conversations with the NPC, and the other one was like, "What are you doing? Like, this is an important guy. Why are you insulting him?" I mean, obviously all of us probably DMs have been in that situation. But then I figured out that, and I was trying, you know what? Sometimes even session zeros don't help. Some people are just not on board. Like there's an, oh, okay, I'll try to do that, and then they totally don't. So I've learned that some people are just not for you. Like you're just gonna let go. Like, okay, dude, you go find another table where you can just be murder hobos.
Yeah.
And finally, I think I've gathered the right, like my core party that we make the greatest experiences with our games because everybody's on board, and it took me quite a number of years to learn to do session zeros, and I eventually got into like I think I already talked about that in some of our DM roundtables, that I've started doing like creating stories based on player characters. Based on characters of my players. Like they do the backstory, and then I combine all three of them together and I make a story. And this way, this is yet another element to bring in those expectations to the table. Because if they create a character that, with a background, I mean, of course they expect those features of him to be used in the story.
Yeah.
So I didn't understand that at first.
I also want to say I love this idea of just having the session zero in real life. That is so freaking deep, and I love it. Just if things are changing with your relationships, with your friends, with your family, with loved ones, have a session zero. Just have that conversation. Figure out like what is it you want.
Totally.
What is it we're in for, that kind of thing. I love that. And
this is how relationship with my wife works. I mean, okay, you finish your thought. I'm gonna get back to that.
Okay. I just wanted to add too, like I love that way of DMing as well. I think it makes the most enjoyable player experience when, especially if a player's like, here is my backstory. I have made this elaborate thing. And you go, perfect. I don't have to like hardly write anything except for some sort of main story that ties it all together.
Sure. So yeah.
But yes, you and your wife.
So basically, we actually have those session zeros once in a while. And this is because, and I have to say that over the 8 years we've been together, I mean, I've been running D&D for 8 years, and I mean, we weren't married. We lived together for 8 years, and we got married.
Are you married to D&D?
Darn it!
Correct it.
No, but no, actually, my wife is in the kitchen again, but she's not sleeping now. It's not too late. She's reading manga right now.
Nice.
Yeah, but anyway, so I have to say that our relationship are like the best right now. We're so on board with everything, and it wasn't always like that. We're fighting over just nonsense at the beginning. And we eventually learned to kind of make this, sync ups and setting the expectations. So especially like when it's funny, relationship and D&D are kind of really similar, because at first you make a lot of promises. You want to be a better person. Like, yeah, of course I'm going to do that. But you actually hate that. And they expect something from you, and you forget about that because it's really it's kind of kind of difficult for you, but you didn't say that, and they think it's fine. And like now we've learned to actually be very clear with like, I don't like that. Okay, let's not do that. And my wife is like, but I want to do that. And we do the compromise thing.
Yeah.
And what's the most important part is at the end of whatever negotiation session we have, we tell to each other, okay, if anything's gonna change in your mind, or you just walk with this a couple of days and just live with this thought. And if you think that, okay, that actually doesn't work, or if it's gonna change at some point, let me know. And we'll have another sync up. So, and I think in campaign as well, especially if you have a 2-year campaign or whatever, that's important to ask your players once in a while, like, is everything's fine? Like, is your story going the direction you wanted to go? Maybe I got carried away a little bit,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, check-ins, like there is session 0, but there should be additional session 0s at points. I absolutely agree, and I love that you and your wife operate like that. That is wonderful.
Life is like a campaign. Life is like a dungeon.
Yeah, life is like D&D. Roll initiative, am I right? Anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, checking in with your players, and especially on things like that. I do not want to undermine like the real life comparison, because that is so good. But the like checking in, like, is this going the way you expected? Is there anything that could be done to improve it, or are you still enjoying this thing that you've created? Is there something we could do to alter this situation to make it better? And I don't know about you, but I feel like when I DM like this, I really take like the back seat in the story. Like I'm like, I'm doing this for you guys, and I don't mind that. I'm totally okay with that. I've made a setting, I've made some sort of a plot, and I'm happy to see you guys explore your characters and this world. But I am super excited for you guys and your story, and I want to make sure that everyone's okay and everyone's having fun.
Yeah, well, that depends on the kind of the energy. So there's a DM and there are players, and the amount of initiative can be different. Some players want to be kind of led by the DM, and others don't. Others are more autonomous, and so you have to balance that, and you have to. There's no like formula for that. You just have to figure out what are your players like, what kind of archetype are they? Because I was like watching all these videos. I don't know, Matthew Colville talking about these like sandbox campaigns or West Marches type of campaigns where everybody can do anything. And like with my players, it doesn't quite work like that. They don't like that. If I just let them go and like, yeah, go ahead and do whatever, they get bored. They can't come up with stuff to do for some reason. Like they're just not good at it. And some people are. So I actually, what I do is I do pretty sort of detailed scenarios for them, but I leave like I prepare cliffhangers at some points so that I give them a whole lot of inertia, like stuff happening to them. They have to run, they get chased. This guy died, your father is in danger, or whatever. Your father had a heart attack and he's in the hospital right now. We had that moment in a campaign. I mean, it was a cyberpunk campaign, so so that made sense. That kind of stuff.
Yeah, it fits.
Because in D&D, nobody else is, I don't know, cure wounds, whatever. So yeah. And then at some point I'm like, it's like pushing your kid on a bike and then just letting go, at some point. And I'm like, oh, Dad, I'm driving by myself. So that for my players, that works really well. I'm giving them a lot of stuff to do, and then I get, okay, so what do you do now? And then they tell me stuff, and then I react to that. And my players are totally satisfied. They adore this kind of formula. But it took me quite a while to kind of, to find that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Another group I have are completely not like that. They want to, like, okay, we're gonna go and just. I had stuff for so whatever. Let me just start over. Totally different group. Those people who I've tried to integrate it into my group, but it didn't work out. People that I've been talking about earlier. That's what I did. I separated them into another group, and now I know what they want, and I set my own expectations before jumping into the game with them. And when we do, I don't care about anything when I go into. I know they're going to ruin everything I create, and I just prepare. And I prepare myself for that, and I'm having fun because I knew what's going to happen. I'm ready. Like, I'm just going to create a whole bunch of stuff that I want to be destroyed. Just go ahead and, I don't know, plunder and just kill everybody and burn villages. Do that.
Yeah.
And I'm having fun.
Yeah. If you're going into your group knowing that they just like to break stuff and kill monsters, then it's like, of course you're not going to spend time investing in the mental backstory of the big bad villain. You're just going to be like, killing things here. And then they're going to be like, we got to stop that guy.
Yeah, definitely.
That's
I mean, usually they are the villains in my games.
That also makes sense.
I think so. I don't. Yeah, because this guy, he likes to create. I'm gonna be evil, lawful evil, and he just creates maniacs. I don't know, and this is funny because in real life, he's like the calmest person. It's so hard to make him. I've seen him. I know this guy for 20-something years, and I've seen him angry once. But in games, he always plays like this sadistic maniac who just paints with blood of his enemies on walls or something. Oh, boy. So there you go. It's kind of suspicious looking dude. It's like, the quietest kid in class meme. Oh, boy. That kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, that's an interesting thing too, because like we're talking about like the psychology of exploring different characters and different mindsets. You also get the opportunity to see like when your friends get the opportunity to be who they want to be. Who is that person? It's like, here comes Mr. Judgy, a DM again.
Yeah. I mean, that has to tell something. I think I want to, sometimes I have a desire to let my therapist see a session.
Oh, really?
Just to kind of, I mean, I don't think I'm going to do that. I don't know.
That's funny you mentioned that. I literally just got back from a therapy appointment before this call, and he was like, "What's your channel?" So maybe he'll break down my group.
I mean, isn't it fun to? I mean, because there are actually techniques in therapy to just letting your fantasy kind of loose and just and analyzing dreams and stuff, or like the thoughts that come to your head like this, and it means something actually. And actually, it actually works. I was so kind of skeptical about this, but it turns out it works. So maybe characters, when players do something in game that's actually their hidden desires or something.
Yeah, something subconscious.
It sounds cliche, but now that I've been through kind of a lot of therapy sessions, I think my skepticism is vanishing slowly.
That reminds me of there was one time I was playing in an evil campaign, and I have such a hard time playing evil characters unless I'm like the villain, like as a DM. But when I'm making a player character, I don't like being evil. Apparently, there was this evil campaign we were in. I was this character for one session and died, And I was like, oh, I got to make a new character now. And I
Uh-huh.
came back the exact opposite into this evil campaign. I'm like, I'm a young guy who wants to be a hero. And then he ended up dying and getting resurrected and converted to evil. And that was very interesting for me to explore. He's like, he is constantly trying to fight against the evil. And
Uh-huh.
I think that reflects it a bit in me. I feel I must be like a lawful good personality with like neutral tendencies, but yeah. Have you ever analyzed yourself like that? Like, what is your alignment?
I've imagined that you say that on like a date. Like, I'm a lawful good with neutral tendencies. And they're like, okay.
Speed
Where do you want to
dating,
go?
what are
You want to
gonna
roll for it?
do? Yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
There's-
I of course I've analyzed myself. What was he gonna say?
It is more of a joke comment. I was just saying we have a restaurant in Toronto where they have a burger where you literally roll a d20 to determine what's on your burger.
Really?
Yeah.
Do they have like what if you roll a 1? Do they put like a dead rat on it or something?
Well, you you go ahead and say what you're going to say. I'm going to see what happens if you roll a 1 on this thing. I'm going to look up their menu.
Okay. Yeah, I already forgot what was it.
Perfect.
I have a memory of a goldfish. I don't know.
What? Oh, I see we're on a roll. Okay.
Yeah,
hold
well,
on.
you know, I don't know if it's true, but they say that a goldfish has like 10 seconds of short memory.
Ah, yes, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I didn't meant to say that I have the experience of a goldfish. Like, you know, like I was a goldfish in my previous life.
That is kind of what I thought you were talking.
No. Yeah, I got it.
Oh, gosh,
I'm
where's
actually
this
Googling.
burger? I'm looking up this menu now and I'm not finding it anymore. Did they get rid of it?
Oh, yeah, right. Alignments. Of course, everybody.
Yes.
I think everybody does that. I
How
don't
could
know.
we not?
I might be. I think I'm chaotic.
Fancy yourself a
But-
chaotic, huh?
I would say that I'm chaotic good.
Cool. I can dig it.
Because I mean, I don't know if neutral is my thing. Because you know, true neutral. That means he can have a little bit of everything, right? Like he can do. Can neutral character do evil stuff? Can he kill or something?
The way I describe a true neutral is it is just the most selfish individual who will do whatever it is to accomplish their goals.
Oh, that makes sense. But I mean, so it's easy to say like, yeah, I'm chaotic good, but we live in a society. But I mean, have you ever asked yourself a question like, what if there were no laws like preventing murder or something?
Right.
Like, would you be able to kill somebody? You know, Louis C.K. had a joke like this. Like, if there was no like good people, like bad people would kill a lot, but good people would kill a few. You know?
Yeah. Right.
It would be suspicious if you didn't kill anybody. Like, oh, that guy didn't kill anybody. Like, if he's weird.
I could be fine being weird. I don't know if I could. I don't think I could. I don't know. Haven't really thought too much on it. Internet.
I think about this all the time. No, not really. Okay, yeah. So that's kind of that's a thing that I start thinking about when I'm trying to kind of claim an alignment. But yeah, I guess in normal life, I would think I'm chaotic good because lawful good. I mean, again, does lawful good means that you are law obedient in your society, or is it just you follow your own principles or something?
Right. Yeah.
Or both.
And I think it could mean either. Like you are a follower of a code. I did say lawful good. I probably would be more a neutral good because it's more like I follow the rules because it's convenient and I think they're for the most part pretty fair or keep things somewhat organized. But if a rule sucks, if a rule really sucks, you can bet I'm gonna chafe against that and probably find a way around it.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm definitely not lawful good. I would like to break a few rules here and there. Yeah. Anyway, how about we move on to another topic?
Mm-hmm.
So, I was gonna. We've been talking about social skills already, but I think an interesting point is like talking about anxiety, and sort of, problematic, not only anxiety, but some kind of issues with running a game, and especially if those mismatch of expectations get to a critical point or something, when it gets kind of dangerous, whatever. Like, when a person is too sensitive about some topic and it just goes on in your game. But yeah, anxiety too. But first, before we kind of delve into this topic, I'd like to kind of stress that social anxiety is an actual disorder. So it's no jokes, folks. So you better kind of, people tend to use this nowadays as an umbrella term for many things. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, I'm socially anxious, but it's the same thing as saying I'm depressed, when actually you're just sad. People kind of confuse those things, because depression is a scary thing, especially like clinical depression.
Yeah.
So if you're socially anxious and we encourage you to go and play games now on accident, like, don't. Exposing yourself to stuff that causes stress is not always a good thing, because I think especially for older generations, it's kind of the thing that, you should overcome it, just be strong. Well, that's not the most intelligent way of dealing with problems, not all the time. So yeah, go see a therapist if it's serious. We are not therapists,
and like I think we've both been very vocal about the fact that we do in fact see therapists. I recommend seeing one even if you don't think you need it. Like
yeah, totally.
I'd been quite functional for quite some time, just managing my own mental health and whatnot. But like I think it was a few months ago during the pandemic here, I started seeing a therapist, and oh my gosh, it's been helping me so much, even just like beginning to kind of manage and understand my thoughts a bit more. I'm like, sure. I totally recommend it.
Yeah, because people think, people tend to kind of be dismissive towards mental health, but it's the same thing as, oh, my leg hurts, you're gonna go see the doctor. It doesn't mean you're a cripple all of a sudden. And if people hear about, like, yeah, I'm seeing a therapist, are you crazy or something? Like, are you having a problem? No, you don't need to be depressed. Or, to be honest, having problems, having like real issues, and going to therapy, you don't make your life better. You're just dealing with the problem. The real therapy and the path towards becoming a stronger and better person starts when you don't have any problems. Like, nothing's happening in your life, and you just talk, and then you start digging stuff and learning about yourself. So just is this 1 week. I mean, my therapist told me that a couple of times, but I, like, a week ago, I canceled my session because I said, I don't, like, nothing's happening in my life right now, so I think I'm gonna pass, save a couple of bucks. Yeah. And she said, okay, you can do this week, but I want to stress this out, that you, like, especially if nothing's to cry about right now, you should come and start, working on your personality, on your life. That's when it starts. So yeah, in fact, I know what I'm talking about, talking about social anxiety, because I actually earlier this year, I was diagnosed with anxious personality disorder. That means that I'm anxious. And this is different from social anxiety, because social anxiety is when you're afraid of people.
Yeah.
And I mean, that sounds scary. I'm afraid of people, and people who are a little bit nervous, they say they're socially anxious. Well, no, if you're like given a speech in front of 100 people, that's natural to be nervous. That doesn't mean you're socially anxious. Or people who say, oh, I have like my mood is changing really weird. I'm bipolar. You have no idea what bipolar disorder means. It's crazy. It'll ruin your life. How crazy it is. So yeah, being having an anxious personality disorder means that I'm just anxious for no reason all the time. But now I'm getting better. So that's one of the reasons my productivity on the channel has been, going down lately, because I've been having like pretty serious problems with like my daily life. And going to like DM in a game sometimes was really painful for me. And I started having drinking problems. I actually, I told about that in my cringe video on my channel. I think that was a symptom of this thing, because, alcohol makes you like careless.
Right.
And that's a really, really bad thing to do. Don't do that. Don't fight your anxiety with alcohol, because it's a straight path to alcoholism. Just you really like, I mean, I didn't go that far, but yeah. So do you have anything to add?
Well, I mean, so far we're talking about like firstly, just mentally take care of yourselves, folks. We're not going to be here offering like, we are not the final say. Go seek professional input on this.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, I suppose if we can start moving into like Dnd and anxiety, I myself am not formally diagnosed with anything, but just something doesn't feel right with me. So I'm like, at some point, I want to get myself assessed. And some people don't like having the label. But
yeah, sure.
I think for me, it would be more of a comfort to like know like what's going on, so I know how to kind of confront it. But
sure. Well, that's not a label like that.
Well, I mean, some people might perceive it that way. Some people might just be like, I am just generally depressed, that kind of thing you were talking about. And it's like, well, you can get more specific about it, and you can actually manage, or at least try to confront whatever is, the sand in your brain.
Yeah, sure.
Going back to your earlier story there. But yeah, so moving on to like D&D and anxiety. I had been a nervous kid for a long time before I started playing. And I mean, it's almost straight to the end here. I feel like it has helped me to play D&D, helped me with my anxiety for sure. Cause it's like you, and being a DM, you get to experience kind of a leadership role. You have to practice managerialness, time management. Like there's a lot of skills that come into play with being a DM that I think help you lead a group. And those are qualities that I think helped me get out of kind of my wallflower behavior.
Right. And speaking of like fighting social anxiety, or just being anxious of running games, because I had those absolutely like weird anxieties. Just I'm seeing my friends for 100th time at the table. There's no reason to be anxious, but I was, and that's because it's chemistry in my body causing that. It's not my fault. And of course, you can't just expect your experience with DMing to help you with that. In fact, it may kind of get things worse if you constantly like exposing yourself to those stressful experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But I think DMing was kind of took a huge part in my realization of what's going on, and me kind of getting into a fighting stance before, delivering a punch to this disorder. Because you're kind of you're finding strengths. You know what exactly is happening to you, because I was in a lot of stressful situation over my life. I chose the craziest activity with my anxiety, being a performer. This is like the ultimate combination. Because I'm a musician and I played in rock bands, and we actually traveled and played in front of many people. And that's when drinking came along as well, because you're suffering as hell. I've been, this feeling when you're anxious and your entire week before the weekend when you have a gig, and you're just walking around, losing weight, freaking getting gray hair or something. It's crazy. And that's in those situations, I thought, well, yeah, this is obviously I'm nervous in front of a lot of people. But when I started noticing that I gather my just two friends around the table, sometimes one friend, just one-on-one campaigns, and I'm still nervous as hell. I'm like, something's clearly wrong with me. There's no reason to be anxious about it. So that was one thing that, among a lot of things, that kind of helped me realize and sort of seek help. And now things are better. I'm a lot better now.
That's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, on a similar note for myself, between being a game master and a player, I love being a game master. I love watching my players explore a setting, explore their characters and all this. But between the two of them, also DMing each session, the lead up to it, is just exhausting, and it's nerve wracking. I don't know how DMs how some games run weekly when I'm gonna need 2 weeks, because, well, a combination of I'm a very busy person, but also I feel like I need a lot more time to put thought into it, when I feel like other people could spend an hour doing what I do in a week. And yeah, I feel like I don't know what faculties are at play, but something requires me to take a bit more time to get a result that I at least think I'll be happy with. And then, of course, the worry of, will my players enjoy it?
Sure. I want to think of some kind of life hacks and how to kind of become less anxious. To me, it always worked being super prepared, knowing exactly what's going to happen, because usually fear of the unknown is a thing. We are scared about future, because it's weird, it's mysterious, what's going to happen.
Yeah,
and
that's
a
at
game session
the core
again
of human existence, right?
Sure, yeah. That makes us do stuff. I guess, prepare, brace ourselves. But I mean, yeah, so you, of course, you can, I don't know, talk to your players, or get really prepared, so you won't look like an idiot when you get ambushed by a sudden question that you're not prepared to. But I think the first step in anything regarding your personality and this kind of social stuff and emotional stuff is actually accepting your emotion. That's something I've learned fairly recently too, to kind of accepting yourself entirely, because we have this image of I guess a lot of people have, I don't know, this image of our better selves, like, what do we want to be? And of course we don't want to be an anxious dude that is afraid of his friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that prevents us from like actually telling ourselves, okay, I'm scared, I am afraid. And then because fear is like an emotion, sort of, and it accepting it, kind of making it your friend, is a really important step in kind of getting through this experience. And it regards anything like anger. Maybe you're angry with something and you actually don't want to be, like, you don't want to be an angry person, especially if you don't think it's fair. But emotions can be fair or unfair, or like, oh, I'm angry for no reason, or afraid for no reason. That's like saying that the wind blows for no reason. You just, like, seemingly for no reason, nothing. There's no huge fan here, is just standing and just blowing. And that's because you just don't know what exactly causes it. And maybe you don't even have any disorder. Maybe you're just afraid of something that you're not aware. Like maybe something, the sphere is sexually attached through a string underground into your childhood trauma.
Yeah.
So to me, overcoming that anger or shitty emotions that we kind of don't like, envy, being envious, and or jealous, and we're like, oh, I don't want to be that, I'll just ignore that. No, it's not about me. That means you're kind of sweeping it under the carpet, and then you're going to end up with this hill of just garbage under your carpet. And to me, I've sort of how I envision this is I'm just saying hello to my whatever emotion, hello my anger, hello my jealousy or my fear, and I imagine that that's a person. Maybe that's a reflection of myself, but actually to look that person in the eyes and say, hey, dude, you are totally fine. Like, go ahead and sit with me and let's have some tea with me, okay? I recognize your existence. It's totally fair. That way, you're making friends with your emotions, with your fear, and you know each other now. You're pals, and that's how I see these things. And it actually helped me. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to work for everybody, but to me, that means that if I'm in a stressful situation and suddenly anger shows up, if we are buddies, I'm going to say, oh, dude, hey, what now? But if he thinks that I'm an enemy, and because I ignore him and hate him all the time, he's going to ambush me, and just hit the back of my head.
Right.
In the most inconvenient moment. So just accepting these things and saying, okay, dude, you're afraid. Maybe you have to cancel the game and just be with yourself. Maybe there's too much going on in your life right now. Or maybe like ask, if you accept this, you try asking yourself, why exactly am I afraid? And sometimes, so I'm seeing a therapist and she asks me stuff like that. And sometimes I'm kind of ashamed of admitting why exactly am I feeling this emotion or that.
Yeah.
But I still do, because I understand that, okay, yeah, this is important to admit into yourself stuff that you're kind of ashamed of. But when you acquire that skill on therapy sessions, you can now do this with yourselves. No need to be ashamed, but we are ashamed even of ourselves. And that's weird. I mean, that's bad. We should fight it. We should overcome it. I think that will help a lot with overcoming fear of DMing.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's one thing, and I love these examples that you gave. It's one thing to be like, I am a person who experiences fear, as opposed to I am a scared person. Because, like, if you let that emotion consume you, that's not healthy. We all experience all these emotions, and understanding and recognizing and respecting that is going to help a lot. And also understanding and respecting that other people feel those things too.
Sure.
Because that, again, it comes back to the empathy. It's like, oh, of course you're angry. Is this justified? It might or might not be, but there might also be other things going on. And oh dear, the second point you were just making there, I had something I wanted to say about that too. Oh, I lost it.
Go ahead and take your time. We can always edit the video. Just
wow, the magic.
Or or just have the elevator music and the Denny's thinking.
Oh,
dun, 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 dun.
I do have it. Some people respond differently to certain stimuli that might help them, but I really do like the idea as well of like actually saying out loud, like, what is it that has me nervous, or what is it that has me scared or angry? Because for some people, actually hearing it, like saying it out loud and hearing it, will ring more true as opposed to just like thinking a thought. I think that's part of why therapy is so good.
Yeah. That's something that is kind of obvious. We think sometimes that, okay, this is an obvious thing, I'm not going to think about it. But sometimes it's good to kind of revisit stuff and just repeating it and, voicing it out to kind of get oh yeah, sure. Well, because first of all, something might change over time. And thinking a thought is not the same as just saying it out loud.
It's a different process. Yeah. And I mean, some things are so obvious, you give so little thought to them, right?
Yeah, sure. But obvious stuff can still be important. The same way as I like cliches in D&D. It's kind of an obvious turn, but you're still having fun with it. It's funny how like everything in our conversation is kind of connects really well, because, getting into heads of your NPCs sort of relates to getting in your own head. And then when you learn stuff about yourself and about accepting your emotions and realizing that this is basically a force of nature, this doesn't have to be justified by your moral standards or something, because if you feel anger towards something or hatred, when it kind of goes in contrast with what you believe, it doesn't mean that this is like not a legit emotion. It's still there for a reason. So you just have to cope with it. Don't ignore it. And the same goes when you start, learning yourself, you become more empathetic towards other people. Suddenly, if a guy in like a traffic comes out of the car and starts yelling and everything, and everybody, you're like, oh, he's having a bad day. Like you can't be super angry at him anymore, because you've been there and you've accepted your anger, and he didn't accept his anger, maybe, or he didn't accept something else, and now he's irritated. There's a huge pile of garbage under his carpet, and you become more empathetic. And same goes for people around your table. Sometimes they get upset or angry with your DMing, and earlier I was getting mad at people for having emotions, and now I realize how stupid that is. And I think a lot of people do that. You're like, how can you be sad? I did so much for this night to happen. I mean, I'm not talking only about D&D, but how dare you being upset? You know how that sounds. I think we do that. Yeah. I've done it like numerous times throughout my life. And so first, know yourself.
Yeah, it's a good step. It's a very important step. And a lot of us take a long time to get there. So don't beat yourself up if you think you haven't found yourself and it's, I don't know, you're however old you are. If you feel you're too old, it's never too late.
Yeah, definitely. People change entire careers at the age of like 45, 50, I don't know. So, yeah.
Yeah, we all grow at different speeds.
Sure. The important part is to keep growing.
Exactly. So we were briefly there. We were talking about kind of like ways to reduce anxiety with like DMing.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to throw another tip out there as well. If you can and have this resource, like find a friend to bounce ideas off of who isn't involved with the campaign. Hopefully they don't mind, or they like fantasy, or they like stories, whatever system you're running.
Uh-huh.
But just somebody to like say things. And again, this goes back to like when you actually say things process differently. Somebody to talk to about your ideas. Maybe they'll have something to offer, or maybe the fact that you've actually just said it will be like sparking a new idea. Like that's a piece of advice from me.
Yeah, I actually had practical applying that advice in practice. I didn't quite know how to end the campaign, how to like get into climax, and I just went like for a dinner with my friend, the one that I don't talk anymore to, sadly. But that time he actually I explained to him the entire story, and the thing is he actually misunderstood one point of the story, and he repeated that, and I'm like, no, it's not like that. But wait a second, that's genius. And I'm like, okay, I'm doing that. I'm totally doing that. And that's the way I did it. And it turned out perfect. So that there you go. Talking to people helps a lot. And I actually know that because I was working in game development, and I was a quality assurance engineer. And part of my job was talking to programmers and kind of getting to know how they implement the feature, how they write the code and documenting it and stuff like that. So, you know, it's a big project and a lot of code. And sometimes I would just start asking him, a programmer, how this works, how your code works. And they would start explaining it to me. And like 90% of the times they were like, I never thought about that. And they kind of get the new idea all of a sudden. So sometimes, even if I didn't need to know something, I was just, come to a dude and talk to them for a while, just to let them kind of get a new idea. It actually reminded me of the House MD episode when you've seen this series?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So at one point, he, for some reason, somebody took away his team, so he didn't have anybody to talk to and crack the mysteries of like the diagnosis. And he would just find a random dude, like a janitor, and to just talk to him.
Yeah.
And just draw on a board, and the guy is sitting like there and just not getting anything. Like, so are you gonna eat that?
Yeah.
Responses like that. But it actually helped.
Yeah.
Gregory House to come up with stuff. Yeah.
So yeah, we've got find somebody to talk to. What was the one you had pitched earlier? Heck.
Asking yourself about stuff, about why.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Overcoming the anxiety of running a game. Yeah, right.
Yeah, this is kind of what I'm trying to help.
Yeah. So yeah, like understanding why.
You mentioned overpreparedness. That's what we were talking about. That's a method.
Yeah, but it can be exhausting.
Yeah, there are downsides to. I mean, it takes so much time to be overprepared.
Yeah. I wouldn't. That's not an advice.
No,
that's a shitty advice, because you have to find the balance.
Yes. Yeah, you don't have to have your story A to B completely fleshed out. Sometimes it can just be from session to session. The story is develops in your head.
Yeah, it's an entirely different skill of realizing how much of stuff you have to prepare. Just today, I watched a nice video with Matthew Mercer and the other guy who's like a very famous DM, and they had an interview, and it was about world building.
Oh, it was probably Brennan Lee Mulligan.
Perhaps, maybe. I don't remember. I don't know his name, but he has a really famous show. as well.
Right.
And he visually described how he like builds his world without over preparing. So I'm not going to be able to do that. But if you have a void, like it's just a blank sheet, and you kind of when you're creating, settlements and locations, you're sort of kind of dragging the landscape from over the mists of the void, and having this islands of without the fog of war. So basically, this and that, and he sort of explained that instead of just like fleshing out the entire landscape, you just build these landmarks that enough about this point A and point B, enough about both of those places that what's in between them. You can come up with this like improvise. So thus you have these islands of intelligence within your setting, but they have so much character and influence. But it's not too many of them. But the spaces in between can be easily filled by just using sort of the vibe of those locations and them colliding. So that's one method of like, yeah, he did a lot better job than me just trying to.
I mean, I get
bring
the
in
premise.
That metaphor.
I do like that. I'll have to check out that video myself as well. Yeah,
it's very fun. It's an hour long, but it actually. I don't know how much this one would be.
Well, right now we're at an hour 40.
Oh my god. Okay. Sure. Well, okay. Maybe we should wrap this up or something. I don't know.
Sure. I mean, hopefully everyone was able to get some interesting tidbits, listen to some interesting stories, and again, yeah, just take care of your mental health, folks. Like in the end, it is you who is important and not your game. Put yourself above your game.
Sure. I mean, to summarize, D&D can really sort of be your companion towards your path on becoming a better person, stronger person, but it's just a companion. You have to work with it yourself, surround yourself with people who are, pleasant to be around, who care about you. The same goes for your players. Sometimes you have to let people go and let other people join your life. And open your mind towards the experience of D&D and, picking the right things out of this game. Things that are important to you, hopefully to make you more insightful and less prejudiced. And of course, hopefully if you have an anxiety, you're going to defeat it eventually. By the way, yeah, if you actually have some kind of anxiety and you happen to watch this video, don't hesitate to actually write us in the comments or find me in the Discord. If you need anybody to talk to, I'm not a professional kind of dude. What do you call those professions? Like hotline or something?
Right. Yeah.
But I'm willing to provide some advice and to help you make
to
a
have
step,
somebody to listen to.
Yeah, to have you make a little step towards to your next point in your this fight with your anxiety. So we can help as much as we can.
And hey, if D&D has helped you in your overcomings of anxiety or skills to help you become a better person, leave those stories in the comments as well. That would be it'd be really nice to see some overcoming adversity through the use of D&D.
Definitely. I'd really like to hear your stories as well. Thank you.
Thank you all for tuning into this conversation with Folkard and I. We had a lot of fun talking about all this different stuff, sharing our stories. And if you enjoyed having Folkard here on the Speak Dicely podcast, be sure to go check out his YouTube channel, Lutes Dice. And be sure to leave a follow and say hi from me in his videos. And if you want to keep up with the Speak Dicely podcast, you can find me on pretty much every social media platform as Dicely DnD. But that's about all the time we have for this episode of the Speak Dicely podcast. So, until next time, I will be back to speak Dicely with you again soon. Bye-bye. This episode of the Speak Dicely podcast was produced and edited by myself, Teni Brant, and the intro and outro music were created by Teni Brant. Thank you for the support, and we'll see you next time on the Speak Dicely podcast.